Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know.
Olá, boa tarde. It's Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show and a special recording for the Portugal Club. And my special guest today, really looking forward to speaking to this man. We share a few passions and we'll be talking about them for the next 30 minutes or so. Let's give him a nice big round of applause. Miguel Franco, everybody. Olá, boa tarde, live from the United States. How you doing, Miguel? Nice big round of applause for you there.
Boa tarde. I appreciate os aplausos. Muito bom.
Yes, calm down, everybody. He's here now. So great to
Thank
speak.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. It's like being on the podium, isn't it?
Yes. Autographs later.
We need one of those great big bottles of champagne now, Miguel. And maybe we should start there because the name of your company is the High Flow CEO, as everybody can see from the banner on the screen and the race outfit that you're wearing. Could you tell us more about this? We're going to talk about Portugal. We're going to talk about San Martino de Porto. We're going to talk about meditation, mindfulness. But let's begin with a big passion of yours and this work you're doing, the business of High Flow CEO. Tell us more about it, if you will.
Okay, well, the business is an evolution of my life's work. Basically, I started this like 40 years ago or so. And I've been in personal development since I know myself, from my time back in Brazil to America and all that. And in right around COVID, I decided to rebrand myself and to get back into racing. So I said, you know what? I think the combo of, because I talk a lot about flow states and going beyond flow states, which I call the high flow state. I said, you know what? Why don't I brand High Flow CEO? Because, I have worked with CEOs in the past, and basically the analogy here is like being in the driver's seat of your life and business.
Yes.
And I think there's no better state than being a high flow CEO, like to be the CEO of your life and business from a state of high flow.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you can navigate the ups and downs and all that, and be in the driver's seat. So get into the racing metaphor.
Yeah.
And bring the passions together. And there's no better sport, in my view, than racing to talk about performance, to overcome limitations, redefining our limits, and navigating the ups and downs, because you have one session. It's not even a day. It's like one session you are good, the other one you are trash, and then you have to learn how to navigate those.
And sometimes it's raining, right? Sometimes, and you have different tracks. The metaphor is beautiful.
Yes.
So how did you get into racing, first of all? Because I'd like to get to cover how you got into personal development, but how did you get into racing in the first place?
Well, I was always, since as a kid, even in the 60s, when we didn't have internet, there was not really big things, it was hard to follow anything. But it started when I watched a movie called Grand Prix. It was a beautiful movie. It's 1966. I think I was 10 years old, and that hooked me. And a few years later, Emerson Fittipaldi went to Europe to race, and soon he was in Formula One, and won his first race in Formula One in 1970. And that sparked a lot of interest of the sport in Brazil, quite a bit. And in Brazil, Brazil had just won the World Cup in 1970 with Pelé, Tostão. That was the squad, the best one I think we ever had. And so that Brazilian feeling of achieving something was really, really interesting. And I got hooked. I did a karting school. And from this karting school, I mean, and then racing became more popular in Brazil. There were more people. There were more races. Emerson brought Formula 2, then he brought Formula 1 to Interlagos, which is my home track. You know, he's
Oh,
from São
really?
Paulo,
Yeah.
and I'm from São Paulo. So I used to race at the kart track. So I used to go there and watch those things. So when I had some money saved, I decided to buy a go kart and went racing. And
Fantastic. Look, this is the movie that inspired you. Doesn't that look
yeah,
like a great time in human history as well? All the glamour and greatness of the world's most exciting drama of speed and spectacle. And look at that. It's like racing drivers and beautiful women. Françoise Hardy, Yves Montand. They said, what a fantastic movie. And I can imagine being a 10-year-old, the glamour and just the action and just the whole thing with that amazing movie from 1967 would have been very attractive.
yeah, but they also showed I mean, people at that time was the Formula One was a romantic thing.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know, it was very passionate. And other, but why? Because you'd have, I don't know, 20 drivers entering the race. Maybe lucky 18 would come out alive.
Yeah.
There
Right.
was always someone dying, and it was very challenging. Very, you know. So I wasn't the glamour or anything. It was more like the feeling. I wanted to feel that speed. I don't know
Yes.
why.
Yeah.
I had that immense desire, and it was very, very strong. So much that when I first drove, I I almost won my very first kart race in Brazil, and that was against what, 40 people. Karting in Brazil is very intense. It's,
Is
you
it
know,
right?
it's,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and very talented people. Ayrton Senna, including, was there.
Yes.
So you can see the level, and I felt that. I felt that energy. I felt that impulses within me, and I think I drove beyond my skill set, and because I didn't have experience, but I could go really fast, and I had those experiences of that later on Ayrton described as out of body experiences or being with God and all that stuff, you know. But I had those experiences at that time, and I didn't know what they were.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And that's where the resonance is, I guess, with personal development, spirituality
Yes,
as well. So was that like a parallel universe, if you like, for you as well?
very much so. And what I did was, you know, there was no support for racing, but my dad said, okay, if you want to study, I'll finance you, right?
Mhm.
So I decided to do engineering, which was really good. I became a mechanical engineer, and engineering gave me a perspective of the scientific approach to understand things.
Mm.
And that I start applying to those, let's say, states of consciousness that I couldn't describe much. You know, although in Brazil this was very much accepted, there are lots of spiritual centers there. I mean, gazillions,
Yes.
and but it's more like, is it a philosophy? Is it a religion? What is it? And I always try to get away from that aspect and to use logic and to use my analytical abilities and all that to understand. So that's how I start studying science to explain some of these things. And that's how my whole life has been. I mean, I've been dedicated to that study ever since.
Well, it's
So,
reality, isn't it? I guess. I mean, this is just recently. I've seemed to have come across quite a few people, engineers, who have this greater sense of reality. So the physics leads to metaphysics, doesn't it? Physics and quantum physics. These are avenues that seem to be leading to the oneness or the greatness or the everything that people also refer to as spirituality and religious experiences, if not religion, but all coming from different directions. But there's something about the engineer mind that has a particular approach to that. And there seems to be quite a sort of preponderance of engineering and physics type characters coming into that space at the moment.
Yeah, but you see how it is. I did that what 30 some years ago,
Right, way ahead of that curve.
and
Right.
way ahead. I'll share here. I published my first book in Brazil called Percepções,
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
a arte de se autoconhecer, the art of personal development. You can say
Right.
translated,
Yes.
you know. And then my second book, this one, but na era da intuição,
Oh my goodness.
a qualidade de vida através do autoconhecimento. So, and in this book was 1996. It has quantum physics. It has all kinds of stuff that today they talk about.
Right. As like everyday things.
Yes, and this was 1996.
Incredible. So anybody who is interested in spirituality and wants to learn Portuguese, that's the ideal book, isn't it?
Still can find this in Brazil. They sell in the not the black market, but the used book market, whatever.
It's like, so it's like an underground classic now. We need to get that republished when you come to Portugal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm in doubt about what to do with this, because I prefer very much to teach. And when I launched this book there, it was a funny thing. I was living in California, but was like one of those things that happen in life. Suddenly, I found myself doing lectures in Brazil and all that stuff, and then I had students, and then these students wanted more, and I ended up co-founding a Institute for Consciousness Studies in São Paulo.
Seriously?
And yes, in
I didn't know
1994.
about any of this. I didn't know about any of this, and it's such a delight to find out how this path is unfolding. Well, okay. So, but you'd moved to America by that point, but you were being called back. To
No,
South Africa.
I was in America, but and that's the funny thing. That connects to the racing aspect. I was living in California, and at that time, I had quit my job. I was a computer sales engineer. I quit that to pursue my passion in racing somehow. And I kind of landed a gig as a marketing consultant with an IndyCar team. and this team, in a sense, they look at me and say, Miguel, forget about getting sponsors. Go to Brazil, find a driver with money, and bring them to the team.
All right. Yeah. Cut to the chase.
Yeah. So that's what I start doing. I start going to Brazil and doing that. And in one of these trips, I mean, that's another story for another time. But to summarize, I came. There was a lady here in the 80s that put me as a case study in her book called Inner Source. That was the name of the book. And this book was translated into Portuguese and became a bestseller in Brazil. I had no idea about that. So one day I walked into this store, into a bookstore near my parents' home, and I saw the book. I saw her name. I said, "Oh, that's the book." And I start looking, and then the owner was a small esoteric, bookstore. The person came in and said, "Oh, this is a great book," and all that. I said, "I know, I mean it." So
Is this the book by Kathleen?
Kathleen
Oh.
van der Kift. Yes.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, incredible. Right, so there you were. You were. Yeah, I know. I'm in the book. You say to the bookseller.
Yeah. And then one of the things the guy said, people have asked me about you. Look at this. Look at how the universe works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
And he said, would you be willing to do a presentation here? I said, "Oh, I'm going back in 2 days to America. I just visit." I put a group together tomorrow. Come take a look at my. So he had a bookstore and like a 2-store thing, and then upstairs there was a room for presentations.
Superb.
So without any preparation, without any, yeah, that's the book,
Just
Channeling
look,
Your
just
Unlimited.
found it.
Yes, Inner
Wow.
Source. Kathleen Van de Kief, my dear Kathleen, she passed. And anyway, I start talking about stuff, and to this group, and people start asking me questions, the psychic development and all that. And then I left, and everybody wanted a class. They said, can we teach us some of these processes there? I said yes. And then the owner of the bookstore said, why don't you write a book to go along with it? And I put together a series of classes for you. And that's how this book came about, Percepções. I wrote in 30 days, and he got published there like in 60 days. So when I went back, I had a book in the bookstore.
That's some excellent manifestation right there, isn't it?
And I start teaching. And then suddenly I had over 100 students coming to this bookstore to take classes.
Wonderful.
And then one thing led to another. I end up, people want to support me there. I had one student, she became my partner in this institute, said we have to structure this. And that's how it happened.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, I think that's going to have to be a part two. Miguel Franco, the teacher, author, as a sort of side, a little turn off from the racetrack that we're on today. Okay, because it was what I wanted to talk to you about was High Flow CEO, of course. So a CEO of a, and we will come back and talk. That's a remarkable story, but a CEO says to you, "Okay, I get it. I understand the metaphor, Miguel." And I want some of this mindfulness and meditation and calm and the flow states that you speak of, because it's actually hell running this company. How do you work with people like that? How does the rubber hit the road when that happens?
Well, that's the beauty of how everything started, was because of this book. I was approached by Rayovac, which is a battery manufacturer, and I got there to talk to the CEO. And they were, because I did this big presentation on the largest human resource conference in Latin America,
Wow.
called CONAR. There were over 1,000 people in the audience. I couldn't believe it, So what do they talk in these things? They talk about management. They talk about staff, right? And I was talking about parallel realities, psychic healing. To these guys.
Yes.
And I had several people coming after, and that opened up a whole new universe for me there, because companies wanted me to talk that stuff in their environment, their workspace. And that came about with Rayovac, that they were very interested in my thing. And they were like way ahead of HR things in Brazil, way ahead in terms of what the trainings they would bring. So they said, can we create a training with you for this? I said, sure. And then, sure. Then I went to talk to the guy. And when I went to talk to the guy, there was this big picture of IndyCar there with Rayovac, because Rayovac sponsored IndyCar, and the driver was Jimmy Vasser, who was my teammate in this team that I was going to help. So I said, man, this is too much of a coincidence. I know Jimmy very well and all that stuff, and
so you'd actually found you achieved your mission then, because you were sent to go and meet somebody in the racing business with lots of money. You found them right there. Right? It's okay.
For me.
Yeah, not for the team. Okay.
And well, I even tried to bring the deal to the team. In fact, I had another driver coming in to do Indy Lights. I brought him even into the meetings that I had. But the CEO said, Miguel, we don't want any other driver. We want you. Do you want to drive? I said,
Do I?
Do I? I was almost 40 years old. I had zero experience basically in racing cars. I only had raced Formula 4, 5 races of Formula 4 5 years before. And prior to that, my karting when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, we can create a program using racing as the role model for this whole thing.
Fantastic.
And I can transfer the concepts of the racing, how to apply this technology, this exercise, this my methodology to improve teamwork, team spirit, productivity, and above all, the well-being of the workforce.
Fantastic.
So I end up teaching to over 500 employees. They sponsored me. I did a whole year on that, and I walked my talk because without
Oh,
any experience, I sat in a car that was like a Formula 3 car, which was very powerful,
yeah.
and I end up runner up in the championship, second place, challenging for first for the champion. I won a race, and so that's how this whole thing happened. And
Amazing.
then yeah, and then there's a lot of other stories on that.
Well, we
So
have to do a series. Yeah, I think we've got to do a series. But I just wanted to get the gist of what you're doing and you know how this came about, which you've done beautifully there. And what a lovely, I don't know, it's real revealing, isn't it? And illustrative of how things can work if allowed to.
Yes, and now it is giving yourself permission to expand.
Yes,
That's how it is. When you are in contraction, you are in fear, and you are being blocked by some sort of things. And I've been there many times, and that's what the high flow. I have what I call the high flow performance matrix, which has 4 different quadrants. And the quadrant to be, of course, the good one is the high flow quadrant, but we have other quadrants, and there is one that the bottom left. I correlate coherence and performance.
yes.
So when performance is low and coherence levels are low, I call the runaway quadrant. Is when you just want to run away from everything.
Yes.
Life is really, really chaotic, and you are depressed. You are not feeling good about yourself and all that. So by increasing performance and by increasing coherence at the top, you are in the high flow quadrant. That's what high flow is. High
Right.
levels of coherence and high levels of performance.
And how long have you been talking about this, Miguel, to people?
35 years.
It looks like the world's finally catching up with you, right?
Yes. And I have to catch up with the world through technology because I'm a hermit. I've been hiding myself in
let
many
me tell
ways.
you. Let me tell you that the rest of the world is ablaze talking about this sort of stuff. The Heart Math Institute, you've probably come across them, right? That's their thing, isn't it? Coherence and performance, and how this affects human beings and children, and how we can make the world a better place with this. It's not just at work, is it? If we function like this in society, in our families as well, obviously there are benefits.
Of course, and there are many people talking about this, like Joe Dispenza,
Yes.
that made it very popular and all that. But this book, you'll find everything Dispenza is talking about here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in his bookshelf, right? And one day when someone says,
I don't know if he knows Portuguese or if he even heard of me, but but the way I think that's the way things work. It's a mysterious way.
Yep.
And
For sure.
and my proposal right now is that age is just really a concept.
Yes, of course.
And of course we are in a body, and the body decays like everything else.
Yes.
But as long as we can keep it functioning in a healthy way, we are unlimited.
Absolutely. And you're bringing that idea and way of being, because it's not just an idea, is it? Like you did with Rayovac, you walk the talk. And I think you're coming now to Portugal and you're walking the talk again. You're bringing that way of being and the concept and grounding it over here now. I'm so glad you are. And just by some other beautiful coincidence, you've taken a liking to the town where I live, which we talked about briefly, San Martino de Porto. And I can't wait for you to be here and start this conversation in Portugal. I mean, how can we help you over here? What is it you'd like to achieve ideally with what you've told us, and how the High Flow CEO idea movement can ground itself or can race the track of Portugal?
Well, I'm applying that right now for the move itself because it's really like challenging
Yes.
because it's a process of letting go completely. I mean, I want to go there with 2 suitcases, me and my wife,
Yeah.
and and for that we have to let go of everything. So I want my computer stuff, and that's it. A few books, and then restart life.
Yeah.
I was thinking that I mentioned about inspiration, right? So I feel like a change is good at any time in life.
Yeah. Agreed.
And Portugal has been a place that has always kind of been in my mind in a sense. I visited there last year. In fact, I first visited Portugal in 1979.
Did you?
And my great grandparents were Portuguese. Um, I like bacalhau ao forno a lot.
That's enough. You qualify.
But, yeah, and because I grew up eating that too,
Yes.
so there is part of the culture, for me, it's very familiar and all that. My wife is Brit, and so we are close to England, so to visit her family.
Well, and the
I
British, the Portuguese have a wonderful and very long historical connection as well,
Yeah.
dating
So
back
I
to the
think,
15th century. Oh yeah.
yeah. So this whole thing is coming to sense now. Regarding the business, it's also a challenge because I've been talking to several people there, some consultants, to figure out how do I do business in Portugal,
Yes.
and the consensus today. In fact, half an hour before we start this, I got an email from one of the tax consultants that I talked to last week, and basically he's saying keep your LLC there and come over. That's it.
Well, you know
And,
what? After my experiences of trying to start a business here, I would have to agree with that. I hope it changes for me, and things may
yeah.
change for you. But I mean, the Prime Minister has threatened to tackle the bureaucracy, which is part of the problem. I don't think it's all bureaucracy. Some of it is some unadvantageous approaches to the business world, I would say, an enterprise here in Portugal. But whatever it is you do from that structural point of view, I absolutely wish you the best of luck. And I want to see, I mean, the main thing is I want to see what you do and what you talk about as a reality here in Portugal so that people can experience this.
Yeah, and I look at it, as I was driving from the track back home today, um, thinking about this conversation, one of the things that I feel would be interesting to have would be a center there, because
Yeah.
I really missed my center in Brazil. Was a
Yeah.
small place, was a house that we rented. We could sit like 30 people max. It was very, very intimate. And I loved every second of it. I mean, facilitating classes live and talking to people is very different than online.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I want to have both, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have zero plans on retirement. So I love what I do, and I want to race in Portugal. Hey,
I
I
want to
want
see
to.
you. I want to
I
see this picture with the background of Portugal. We do have racetracks here,
uh,
as you know. We've got Portimão, we've got Estoril, we've got kart tracks as well. So it would be
yeah,
great. And we are working on a centre here in San Martino de Porto for other kinds of group work. So it'll be amazing to have you as part of that mix. And obviously, if you have your own center, it'll be great to come and visit you there. We also have a men's shed, Miguel. And so my first invitation to you is for us, the group of guys from the men's shed, maybe to go with you to the local kart track and we do a high flow CEO session maybe with the whole men's shed group. I'd love to do that with you.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well,
There is
consider
a
that.
kart. There is a kart track in Leiria.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
that's approved by FIA. So I don't know. I have to be there and go. When I was there last year, I went to Bombahal. It's another track in Bombahal.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I went to.
I think there's a little one in Caldas de Rainha as well, near Foz on the way out to Foz.
I don't know, but Portugal is incredible. There are so many kart tracks there. But
they must have known you were coming. They must have known you were coming.
And then I went to Portimão. Portimão is fantastic. I mean, that's a track that I really want to drive because it's really fast, has a lot of draft. So, but I want to get a feeling. You see, it will take me at least 1 year to figure Portugal. Like where, and the whole thing, and so I will see. But I do want to find a way to race karts in Portugal. I want karting because karting is so much more challenging than cars. So much more challenging.
Yeah.
And
you're close to the ground, right?
Yeah, and especially for a 7-year-old, it's not easy. But I'm very competitive here against people half my age that are very, very experienced. I'm right there.
Just to reiterate, you're in your 70s, right?
Yeah, I'll be 69 this year.
Oh, okay, you'll be 69 this year, and you'll be touching 70 by the time you get here to Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Can't wait to welcome you here. It's going to be great fun, Miguel, to have you here and to carry on this conversation and hear more about those incredible books of yours. I'm going to give you another big resounding round of applause here, if I may. If we imagine ourselves standing on the podium in first position now, the champagne at the ready. Let's give you a nice big round of applause and say muito obrigado and até a próxima. Ciao, ciao. Thank you so much. Woohoo! Thank you for being.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun